So we all know the iPad mini 7 should be releasing somewhat soon since it's nearly been 2 years since the iPad mini 6 released. Rumours have been currently pointing towards two timeframes for its announcement, which are this September or an early 2024 release instead. Now we have heard a few tidbits regarding what to expect with this refresh, and so let's delve into this and also talk about things I want to see as an iPad mini 6 user and also things I've seen you guys mention you want to see. Now I do want to emphasize, not everything I will mention are things I realistically see Apple doing. In fact, let's first talk about the rumors, and there's literally only one change we've heard about, which is a new SoC. That's it. This will be a simple spec refresh, allegedly with the A16 or A17, and based on what Apple usually does with iPad mini refreshes, I definitely would not be surprised if that ends up being the case, but I'm gonna mention what I want to see anyways in the hope that Apple's watching this and does take note. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Also, I'm mostly nitpicking with my wishlist because, as I said in a recent review regarding this, I love the iPad mini and I'm totally a fan of this form factor, so let's delve into the small things I want to see Apple change. And that begins with thinner bezels. While I can definitely live with the bezel size here, it does look a little dated, and so it would be nice if the iPad mini 7 got thinner bezels. And yes, I know many are going to say, hey, you realize those bezels serve a purpose, right? You need somewhere to hold on to the iPad when using it. And yes, I'm totally aware that's the case, but even then guys, Apple could easily make the bezels a little slimmer and you would still have somewhere to place your finger when using it without any issues. This also would not just be an aesthetic upgrade, because with thinner bezels we could get a bigger display in the same form factor, which is always appreciated, so I'm hoping Apple eventually does this. Another display related change I would like to see is fixing the scaling, because Apple's literally miniaturized the iPad Pro UI, and so as a result, the content has not been optimized for the smaller screen. So for example, on the home screen, there is tons of wasted space, and as a result some widgets and the information they show are frankly too small. Now yes, I know some might say change the font size, but I've done that and it does not fix the scaling on this. Apple ultimately needs to fix iPadOS for the iPad mini, and I'm surprised they've done nothing regarding this over the last 2 years, and it's ultimately not a deal breaker for me since I can live with it, but I'm hoping one day Apple does optimize iPadOS for the iPad mini. My next request is pretty minor and most probably don't care about this, but I'm gonna mention it anyways, and that's the fact I want a silver iPad mini so bad, because I got Starlight thinking it would be basically similar, but this is really not that silver. This has more of a beige / gold hue to it, and so please Apple, give us silver back on the iPad mini because it looks way cleaner. And in fact, I think the mini and the Air should gain some of the fun colors we saw with the iPad 10, because those were bright and vivid, they popped and especially would suit the smaller size of the iPad mini. Now I don't see my next request ever happening if I'm being honest, and that's quad speakers. This really depends on whether you've used an iPad Pro in the past, but as someone who did have one for years, the iPad mini speakers are a bit of a downgrade. Now obviously I was expecting the speakers to be worse either way because it's a much smaller device, but the quad speakers do make a difference. They make the sound more fuller in my opinion that both the Air and the mini lacks. So please Apple, it's about time the mid-range iPads get this. Please don't restrict quad speakers to the iPad Pro, because most consumers are consuming content with iPads, and while I do understand the base iPad not having this, the mini and the Air should get this. Another change I don't see Apple ever doing, but I would like to see anyways, are moving the volume buttons back to the landscape position, especially when I'm watching something in bed. It's pretty cumbersome trying to adjust the volume on this, and so I usually end up using the control center instead. Now why I don't see Apple changing this is because it's pretty obvious. The whole reason they moved the volume buttons was for the pencil, and while I don't use this, I know many who do, and I very much doubt they're going to release a mini pencil for this iPad, so I guess I'll have to live with this. But by far the easiest change Apple could implement is 128 gigs of base storage. Now I can make do with 64 gigs, but realistically Apple should not be selling 64 gig iPads. The only model that gets a pass is the iPad 9 because you can find it nowadays for sub $300, but the iPad mini is a relatively expensive iPad, and so give it 128 gigs as standard, and especially with the 256 gig model being $150 more over the base version, Apple should really fix the storage tiers on the iPad mini and the Air in the future, because it's an absolute mess. So those are basically the changes I want to see with iPad mini 7. Most of them are nitpicky, as I said, but now let's delve into the upgrades I've seen people often mention on the interwebs. We firstly begin with 120Hz. This is a very popular feature request I see from techies because everyone loves high refresh rate panels, but I'll be honest guys, I'm not someone who cares or needs this. Going from an iPad Pro to the iPad mini's been no issue for me, and I feel like 60Hz is actually not too bad with iPadOS and the fluid animations. And I'm aware jelly scrolling was a massive controversy the iPad mini faced back when it launched, but I'll be honest guys, I don't think I've picked up on it once. It's a non-issue. And regarding the display, another request I see people say is OLED. Now I would not be against this upgrade because I can see the difference between LCD and OLED, and I appreciate OLED on the iPhones. It is a nice upgrade, but let's be honest guys, it's also going to be very expensive. And if I were to choose between an LCD iPad mini at the same price, or an OLED iPad mini that's $100 to $150 more expensive, I would definitely just stick to LCD because Apple's LCDs are solid. I've really had no major issues with the display on this, apart from the bezels as I previously mentioned. Another big request I've seen online is Face ID. Now this is something I can eventually see the iPad mini get because I remember Mark Gurman telling us Apple plans to bring Face ID to all devices within a few years, and plus it's an easy upgrade they can bring to this. However, I'm actually in the minority of users who prefer Touch ID on the iPad because I often find myself blocking the Face ID modules on the iPad Pros when holding it, so it's a lot easier and convenient to just press the home button to unlock the iPad. Finally, let's talk about the possibility of M1 or M2 in this. I've seen some wanting an iPad mini Pro that has an M series chip, and as a result get Stage Manager and Final Cut, but here's the thing guys, this form factor is not really for serious productivity in my opinion. Out of all the iPads Apple currently sells, this is the one that's truly just an iPad. It's a device that should accompany your main computer and should be used for regular tablet usage like watching movies, reading books, playing games, etc. And yeah, honestly, I don't think you'll get a ton of work done on such a small device, and so I don't think Apple's ever going to give us an M series chip on the iPad mini, and nor do I want this. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.